I've always considered myself a patient man. Calm, measured, unflappable. That's how people describe me. But everything changes in an instant. One night, my whole world was flipped upside down by a single, unexpected discovery. My name is David Grant, and this is how I found out that sometimes there's no room for forgiveness. It started like any other evening. My wife Sarah and I had been married for 8 years. We had 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, and the kind of life that others might envy. Sure, we had our issues. What marriage doesn't? But there was a sense of normalcy in our lives, a sense of stability that I held on to. I trusted Sarah, maybe more than I should have. But one Thursday night, I came home early from a work trip. My flight had landed ahead of schedule, and I thought I'd surprise Sarah. I'd planned to grab some takeout from her favorite Thai place and watch a movie with the kids. It seemed like a perfect way to make up for the long days I'd been away. But as I pulled into the driveway, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The front door was wide open. The porch light was on. It wasn't like Sarah to leave the house unguarded, especially when she was home alone with the kids. I parked the car and walked up the front steps, calling out, "Sarah? Kids?" There was no response. I pushed the door open fully and stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet. A little too quiet. I dropped my keys into the bowl on the entry table and went deeper into the house. As I walked past the living room, I heard the unmistakable sound of voices, low and hushed. But the words were too muffled for me to make out clearly. I froze in place. The voices weren't coming from the kids' room. They were coming from the master bedroom. My pulse quickened as I approached the door. The hinges creaked slightly as I pushed it open. What I saw stopped me dead in my tracks. Sarah was lying on the bed, her clothes scattered on the floor, and she wasn't alone. A man, one I didn't recognize, was beside her, his hand on her leg. They were both tangled up in the sheets, not even trying to hide what was happening. I stood frozen, my mind racing. Was this some sort of mistake? Was this a joke? It was real. My wife was in bed with another man. My breath caught in my throat, and I had to grip the doorframe just to steady myself. They hadn't seen me yet, but I knew what I had to do. Without saying a word, I backed away from the door and quietly closed it. I went down the hall to the living room, my mind spinning, trying to make sense of it. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt the weight of betrayal settle in like a lead anchor. I was reeling, but I couldn't let it show. Not yet. I needed answers. I picked up my phone, called my best friend, Tim. He picked up on the second ring. "David? What's going on?" "I need you to meet me." Now the usual place. Tim's voice dropped a few notches. "Are you okay? What's going on?" "I'll explain when I see you," I said, hanging up without waiting for a response. There was no time for pleasantries. I had to act fast. I grabbed my jacket, walked out of the house, and drove to the bar where Tim and I always met. The place was dimly lit with old leather booths and the faint hum of conversation in the background. Tim was already there, sitting in the corner, a drink in hand. He looked up as I walked in and gestured for me to sit. "What happened, man?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "You look like hell." I sat down across from him, my hands shaking as I reached for the glass of water in front of me. I took a sip, trying to steady my nerves. "Sarah's cheating on me," I said flatly. Tim blinked, clearly taken aback. "Wait, what? Are you sure?" "I saw it with my own eyes, Tim. I walked in on them, her and some guy I don't even know. I didn't say anything. I just left." "Holy crap, I don't even know what to say." I ran my hands through my hair, my mind struggling to make sense of it all. I don't even know who he is. I don't know if I can trust her anymore. I don't know what to do. Tim didn't say anything for a long moment, just watched me closely. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice serious. "David, you know you can't let this slide, right? This isn't something you just forget." I knew he was right. My whole life, my whole identity, had been built around trust. And now, That trust was gone. Sarah had shattered it, and with it, everything we had built together. What am I supposed to do, Tim? Just walk away? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You have to decide what's best for you. You don't owe her anything anymore. Not after this. The words stung, but they made sense. As I sat there trying to come to terms with the fact that my wife had betrayed me, I realized something. I was no longer the man I had been. The calm, measured David had been replaced by someone else. Someone darker, someone who was capable of things I had never thought possible. I don't know how to feel, I muttered. You don't have to feel anything right now, Tim replied, his tone firm. Just take a step back. When you're ready, you'll know what to do. We sat in silence for a few more minutes, the weight of the situation hanging over us like a thick fog. Finally, I stood up, my mind made up. I'm going home, I said. I need to talk to her. Tim didn't try to stop me. He knew that this was something I had to face on my own. When I got home, the house was still silent. The kids were in bed, their small bodies snuggled up in their blankets, blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing. I could hear Sarah moving around in the kitchen, cleaning up as if nothing had happened. I walked toward the kitchen, my heart pounding in my chest. When she saw me, her eyes widened. Her lips parted as if to say something, but she didn't speak. Instead, she just stared at me, her face a mixture of guilt and fear. What were you doing? I asked, my voice icy. David, please. I can explain, she stammered. Explain? Explain what? How you were in bed with another man? The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. Who is he, Sarah? Who is he, and why the hell is he in my bed? She flinched as if my words physically struck her. I'm sorry, David. I never meant for this to happen. It's just, things have been so hard between us and Stop. Just stop. I cut her off, shaking my head. You don't get to make excuses. You don't get to justify this. She collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. I don't know what to say. I made a huge mistake. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I said, my voice hard. You shattered everything. Our marriage, our family. Everything we built is gone. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. Please don't leave me. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. This wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about saving the marriage. It was about what came next. I didn't have any more trust to give her. I was done. I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I can't look at you and pretend that everything is okay. I'm leaving. Her eyes widened, the desperation clear in them. David, please. Please don't go. I'm already gone, I whispered. You just haven't realized it yet. I turned and walked out the door, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. All I knew was that I couldn't stay, not anymore. There was no room for forgiveness in my heart, not after what she'd done. In the days that followed, things changed. Sarah begged for my forgiveness. She sent texts, left voicemails, and even tried to talk to me in person. But the damage was done. The trust had been shattered beyond repair. And for the first time in my life, I knew that sometimes the only thing you can do is walk away. There's no room for forgiveness when the betrayal is too deep and the hurt too great. In the end, it was my decision. I chose to leave her behind, to walk away from a life that was no longer mine. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, and sometimes that's the hardest part of all.